Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sorry for doing a hard
so
backtrack.
so yeah.
I was just
No,
curious.
I was just like, what?
Wow, you're
What's
confusing the
happening?
guests. What the hell's wrong with you?
Where am
Damn
I? What part of my life are we talking about? There's so many different things. Oh my god. Yes. Okay. So yeah, interacting in VR is very different from interacting in the physical space.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Metaverse Degen. I'm Lion.
I'm Old Man Raptor, and our guest is...
Mycana.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to actually be able to sit
Yeah.
here and get to meet you.
Yeah, very likewise.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. In this nice snowy area.
Mm.
Hope your butt doesn't get cold
Love it.
because you're sitting in a snowbank.
So I'll let you know. Right now it's okay.
Okay, please tell me. I'll go find a fire and build one around it somewhere. I don't know where we put it, but, I'll do the best I can.
Oh, so what is it you do here in the virtual world, Mycana?
Oh gosh. So what I do is a lot of live performance in VRchat. And then I also teach in VRchat as well. I do live theater and improv. And gosh, I don't even know where to start. Whenever people talk to me, they're like, "You're doing so many things," and I'm like, "I know, please stop." But I guess I could just start off by saying I got into VR performance during the pandemic when lots of people did. A lot of us bought the headsets. I didn't really start off when a lot of people did. I just bought the headset and then I let it sit in the corner for like 6 months because I was like, that's nice. I don't know what to do with it. And then finally I came across some things on a couple different platforms about how to get involved with VR performance. And so I reached out to those folks and they took me through. So I got involved with a group called Furry Collective. We were working on a group called Nexus, or excuse me, a show called Nexus. And then I found an improv group and started going to workshops there. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. And I found myself wanting full body tracking, right? Because when you're around so many people who are able to move all their limbs, it's like, oh, I got to have that too. And so then I got the full body tracking. And then a friend of mine was like, hey, there's a place called VR Dance Academy. You dance, so you might be interested in that. And so I started going there. And then I started teaching there. And now I teach at VR Dance Academy. I teach jazz dance, improv, and physical comedy.
Oh, wow. You in fact do a lot.
I do a lot. And that's not everything I do. That's not everything I do. Actually, I just had a workshop performance end yesterday. There was 2 days of it with a group that I founded with 2 other folks, Light Controller and Parental Noise. And what we do, we were theater practitioners outside of VR that are now focused on doing theater in VR. And so we've found, talking to colleagues who do theater outside of VR, they are hesitant to walk into the space. Either they feel it is infringing upon their life's work, or they feel like the headset's too much, or they don't really understand how it works and they don't know what questions to ask. So what we do is we kind of talk to our friends who do theater in the real world. I don't want to say real world, the theater live outside of VR. And if they're interested in doing a show in VR, we help them to bring that show in VR. So we've done play readings with a playwright who was like, wow, I didn't know my words sounded like that in a virtual space, because it's all very different. And then just recently, we just finished a show with an interactive immersive performer, and she's used to doing place-based performances, and this was her first kind of step into VR. So what we did was we took her script, we walked her through it, we helped her with movement, we helped her with direction, we built her a world, and then she did 2 workshop performances of her solo show, and that was a great success. We were really excited about it, and it was called The Fantastical of Now by Siobhan O'Loughlin. And our group is called, it's a mouthful, but it's Tri-Coastal Virtual Theater Workshop. Because we're on 3 coasts. I'm on the West Coast. One of my colleagues is on the East Coast, and then our third colleague is in London. So we have these 3 time zones we're working with. So we're like, oh, tri-coastal. We'll just go with that. If we find something like more interesting later, we'll change it. But right now, that's that's what works. We're like, we need a name. So we just went with the most basic. What do we do? Okay, that's what we do. So yeah, I do a lot. But it's worth it because I'm so interested in live performance in VR and how we can cultivate this community and how we can just create some amazing pieces of art in here. And I've been talking a lot.
Don't
sitting there.
Don't worry about it. We very much appreciate
That's why we're here. That's why you're here. That's why you're here. Okay, I got a question for you since you started and then you got the beginning of it. Okay, I asked this to everybody. If you ever watched our videos and everything else like this.
Yeah.
When you first came into VR, right? You put your headgear, 6 months later, you decided, okay, I'm going to put it on. And you decided to hop somewhere and you walked into something going, oh my God, I got to go. What was the weirdest thing you ever saw in VR that made you just go, nope, I'm done. I'm out. I got to go somewhere else. I got to get out of here.
Oh gosh. I've been very fortunate because I've been in groups since I got into VR. So, and it was before the establishment of groups. So I actually knew people. Very rarely did I go out by myself into public spaces. And so I had more good experiences than bad. The one weird bad situation I had when I decided to just go into a public world was a child's sounding person. I don't know if they were actually a child, but they ran up to me and they were like, hey, that man is bugging me and they're saying awful things to me. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm the adult in the room. What do I do? I didn't know what to do. And I was, I went into full on like, I guess teacher mode, and I was just like, you need to speak to a moderator and you need to email whatever. And like, I don't know what to do. Please leave me alone. Like, this is a bit much for me. Like, I just, why is that older person talking to you? And that's very concerning. And I think, I think that's what I took my head off. I didn't say that's it. I was just like, that's it for today. Like, maybe I don't want to go into public spaces without some kind of preparation, mental preparation, some kind of like map strategy of how I'm going to get out of there in a way that is, just that protects my mental health. I've had some other, I had recently, it's because I also teach in Horizon Worlds. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about other VR platforms.
Be my guest. Go right ahead. I have had very little experience with Horizon Worlds other than it kind of looks like a VRChat clone. That's the best I got for my own opinions. I haven't spent enough time into it.
It's not my favorite, but I work with a group there called Unknown Theater, and I think what they're doing there is great. What they do is they provide comedy classes and opportunities to perform on stage. And so my favorite of their kind of classes that they have there is they have a workshop on Monday nights. It's called Joke Club. And you get to like write a bunch of your jokes and test it out on people. And then right afterwards, they have an open mic. So you can actually like see your progression. You can, and so I as a person who is in performing arts, I love that opportunity to just like do the thing at the first stage and then see it to fruition. And then you're able to say, I did it. It wasn't that hard. I'm going to do it again. Because, a lot of folks will if they don't have the opportunity to perform, they're just like, why? What am I doing? So that's one of my favorite things that they do. And then I teach sketch comedy there, and then I have a colleague who teaches improv. And once a week, they keep changing the week, so I forget which day it is, but we go out into the public space. So like I think it's called venues. I don't know. It's very similar to like the Black Cat, like a public world where everybody just goes. You just show up, and we had this. We do performances, so kind of like street theater. And street theater is the kind of thing that I haven't figured out how to do in VR yet because it is very volatile, right? Like you stand up in a public space and people just like come at you. Whereas in regular street theater, like people will just ignore you. People don't punch the mime normally. They don't go into the mime's face and like scream stuff. There's a little bit of like, yeah, I don't like mimes, so I'll just ignore it. But in VR, it's like, I don't like you, so I'm gonna like get in your face. And so we had that happen. We were performing at venues, and we were just doing a little street theater, a little improv, and it was actually a really fun game. And I was really proud of the students because it was a hard game and they really rose to the occasion to learning it, and they were having fun with it. I think, as a teacher, when you see your students having fun with the stuff you teach, it's so rewarding. It's so fulfilling. So there I was, little tears coming down my cheeks, right? Like I taught them this game. Then this person comes running up and just shout is like, are you recording? And we're like, yes, we're not gonna lie, right? We're recording, we're streaming. Just by the way, everybody, like we give a little announcement for those just showing up, we're streaming. And that person takes the opportunity to say something, extremely racist. And I was just like, do we have another suggestion? I just like went over it. I just like, I didn't even like acknowledge them because I was just like, I'm so tired of this. I'm so tired of this kind of behavior that I'm just not even going to acknowledge it. And, people were like, get off the stage. And luckily, people rallied and like the person was booted. But that was one where I was pretty mad, because it was just like, how can you do this? I just don't. I don't know. It wasn't demoralizing, but it was just one of those moments where I just felt really low because I had been going on a high with VR for so long with social VR, and then just being like, maybe it's not as bad as people say, and whatever. And I'm in here a lot, and I think that moment really proved to me like how sheltered I am when I'm in VR chat. I'm in groups all the time. I'm in groups that have established themselves to be very open and very accepting, and they don't tolerate that kind of thing. And it was just a little bit of a reminder to myself, like there's a lot more work to do in these social spaces. So while it was an awful moment, I am glad I had it because it really it opened my eyes to how much more work we have to do. Later on, I found out that because it's streamed, hey, guess who's trending on Reddit? Oh my God. I was not. I was like, wait, what? My colleagues were like, we're trending on Reddit. I was like, no, I don't want to trend on Reddit. And then I thought it was over. And then a couple weeks later, actually a few days ago, a couple weeks from the incident, a few days ago, my friend in at Rack Pack Improv was like, hey, you were on my Reddit homepage. I'm like, now what? Now what? Like, so now that is the nightmare now, like trending on Reddit. Like, I don't want to trend on Reddit. Like, that is not something I want to do. I don't think. Should I be trending on Reddit? Is that a good thing?
Well, that entirely depends on the reason why you're trending on Reddit.
Exactly.
Pretty
That's
much.
what I would think. But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, thank you for that question. So yeah, not much shakes me, but that was like that was a moment where I was like, okay, you caught me off guard.
Since you've had a lot of experience in the real world doing theater, what do you think of the VR implications of using VR for theater?
You cut out when you said implications. Was it just implications or any specific?
Nope. Just using VR for theater. What are your thoughts on like the using it as a whole?
Right.
My bad.
Yes.
Word is just bad at me sometimes.
I think there's so much potential. There are a few different avenues that I like to think about this. So we have the obvious avenue where you have these fantastical worlds that you can build, and you don't require space. In the real world, I remember, real world, I need to stop using that. This is the real world. We are people. In the physical world, when I was doing theater a lot, our big issue was finding space, finding a place to do the performance, paying rent to do the performance, not being able to pay your actors much because you had to pay the rent to the theater or the space. And so I remember that being one of the biggest deals. Now we have all the space we want because we create it ourselves. And now, of course, there's new issues, there's new problems that come with that. Finding people who can technically do the thing, right? Maybe you're asking too much of your world builder, or making sure that those lines aren't crossed. But as for space, we have space, and no one's asking for rent, and so that's an awesome thing. I noticed that we in this space we do a lot of more interactive performances. That seems to be very interesting to the audiences that we have. I am new to the interactive, immersive world. And so this is a new step for me in my theater education. And it's been really great to pick up books and to check out concepts and theories and test things out, see how they work in the space. And so there's just a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential for new approaches to playwriting and narrative design, just because of how we engage our audiences and what our audiences expect from us. There's so many things. Not to mention just the avatars in general. I am not a teenage girl from. My avatar says I am, but I am not. And it's really interesting because in a lot of ways, this medium can help fight ageism that we see a lot in the performing arts space. And then also we could kind of push against the norms of body expectations in this space, and open up the space to lots of potentially folks with different abilities, that in the physical world, unfortunately, the performance space doesn't allow for a lot of deviation from the expected norm. You're an ingenue, you look a certain way, or you're the leading man, you look a certain way. Here, we can have our actors be from look any way they want. And it's such a bizarre thing to say, but it's something that I've noticed that is a real positive, that, I could easily have long, flowy blonde hair and I don't have that. One of my older friends, I was talking to her, and she's an actor, and she's been an actor for years and years. And she's like, "You mean I can play Juliet?" And I said, "Yes, you can play Juliet," and I think that was really eye-opening for me when I actually heard somebody else say it. And I was like, that's right. You can play Juliet as long as, you can embrace that character, and that character can show through your avatar. You can play Juliet. So a lot of freedom in that. So there's a lot of different ways that VR can be really great for performance. Now, also, I like to mention that VR performance can also be more accessible to people, and that doesn't really sound kind of like a obvious thing because we have all this equipment, right? We have these computers and these trackers and this headset and whatever, and that's cost money, and that's definitely a barrier to entry for lots of folks. But for the folks who do have it, I've met a lot of folks who have this VR equipment and they've never actually been to a theater. They've never actually seen live performance, or they think, maybe they saw it once, and they live somewhere now that they don't have access to it. And so, for all the fantastical things we can do in VR performance, like creating big spaceships or mystical, fantastical spaces, the proscenium stage in VR, I think, is also very acceptable because sometimes people just want to be in a theater with other people watching a thing on the stage, and that's where being a part of Skits and Bits, doing improv with them, doing improv with Rack Pack, and doing dance with Virtual Reality Dance Academy. We all perform at a proscenium stage right now, and people enjoy it. They don't have access to that kind of entertainment wherever they're at, or and for lots of different reasons. Either it's geographical, it's physical, it's financial, we don't know, but if we're entertaining to people and people enjoy watching us, that's all that matters. So there are a lot of different ways that there's the for VR performance is just it can be access, and it can also be innovation, and I think that's why I love doing it so much.
So you said something a little earlier that has me wondering a few things. What's causing the hesitancy for the theater and meet space to want to come into VR?
I've heard a couple different things. I don't want to speak for everybody, but so it's the headset. Just having the physical headset is something that a lot of actors aren't really interested in. And then it's a different way of moving your body as well. So it's if you don't have full body tracking, you look in a mirror and you notice you don't have control over half of your body. Your head, moves your body a whole different way. And so in a lot of ways, it's more training. And I remember one actor telling me, because I knew he had a headset and he was looking for, it was 2021, and he was looking for stuff to do in the theater, and he hated Zoom theater. And so I was like, why don't you join me in VR, and I can introduce you to some folks that I just met. And he said, I trained with my body. Okay, that's fine. And that was his response. And I think a lot of actors feel that way too. But I think it has to do with that, not knowing what to do with the rest of your body, having the headset on, not being able to express themselves completely with their face, and learning, having to basically start from zero. And if you're talking to actors who have trained 15, 20 years, and they are very comfortable on the stage. At some point, they probably had to train for the TV. At some point, they trained for the movies, and now they have to train for VR. And for some folks, that's too much. And it's I think it's just too much for some folks. But that's what I've heard. It's just they don't. It's the body that they don't feel they have control over, and they're not used to that. Other folks are just like, I don't want to be a cartoon. Okay, fine.
Okay. That's fair enough. Well, at least in some of those things you've mentioned, if the financial barrier to entry to VR is not a problem, there are some technology coming out, like there's obviously the full body trackers for the bodies, and there are newer ones coming out with various things through Vive and Slime and so on. And then also face tracking is a thing that's coming. There's the eye
Yeah.
tracking with a Quest. Vive has the Focus, which does eye and mouth tracking. You have the Vario Arrow that also allows eye tracking. Then you have the Vive mouth tracker you could pair with things that'll have eye tracking. So there are combinations of things you can spend your money on to help bring the immersion of the access and control of your whole virtual self. That's coming soon, and I think
Yeah.
it's gonna be a lot
I
more
Yeah,
accessible.
and I think once it becomes more financially accessible, more people would be interested in trying it out and just taking a stab at it. Um, there are some things that, as I've been performing, there are things that you have to get used to as well. So, gosh, let me just take a step back here. On Sunday, I was performing with Rack Pack, and one of the actors had a glitch with their microphone,
Mm.
and so it was like I need to restart my entire computer. And we're having conversations over Discord, and we're all aware of it. The audience is probably just like, that person's not there anymore.
Mm.
But in the background, there's that whole anxiety of like, should I come back? Should I just stay in the audience? Should I come back on stage? Yes, come back on stage. You're fine. Let's just try it. Let's see what happens. And
Mm.
so it's kind of like next level of triage. A lot of stuff happens in physical theater, that there's a lot going on backstage, like your mic can't, maybe your mic doesn't work, or the spotlight doesn't come down, or
Mm.
you lose your prop, so you need to figure out how to, you need to figure out what else is around that you can use, or maybe you just cut that line. So there's a lot of fast thinking when you're in the physical stage as well.
Mm.
the but there's an extra layer for this. It involves tech, and
Mm.
it's like, okay, let me just figure that out. Prior to that show, actually, one of my trackers stopped working. I had to repair it. Found out that it was dead, and I actually have an extra set of trackers just in case that happens. And so I picked that tracker up and repaired it, and it was like, if I was doing that a year and a half ago, I think my mind would have just shut down, and I would
Mm.
have like cried and like called it a day and be like, I can't do this, but because I'm in here all the time, I'm just like, oh, okay, I'll just get that second tracker, or that other tracker that is available, and I'll put it in. And so I think performing in this space takes a lot of time. It's not just jumping in and like, I'm here now, I have all the equipment. It's also getting used to these things that we trip over just in a regular performance space. Crashing, oh my God, how many times have I crashed during a performance where it's like, okay, guess guess I'll just have to come back and get on the Discord, because that's kind of our back channel of communicating, saying, hey, I crashed, and they're like, we know. And then I come back. But getting used to crashing gracefully, so you're not stressed out, and so that you can just come back and do the thing and just be like, yeah, that happens. It takes a long time to get used to that. And for a long time I would take it personally. How weird is that, right? I'd be like, I'm so bad that I crashed. Like, it has nothing to do with me as a person.
No, not at
Like,
all.
it's just all these like these tech fairies, right?
Mm.
When they decide to like crash you. So yes, I always say, thank you, tech fairies. I appreciate you. Please guide me through this performance.
Well,
But yeah, so it's there's so many things to get used to. It's beyond the body, and the control of the body. So it's, once you learn that, it's then, okay, now here are all the things that can happen once you're performing live. Oh God.
one of the things I did learn from a lot of people we've chatted with is a lot of the time, at least in the VR space with like DJs and other types of performers, the audience won't notice when you make a mistake. Whether it's an audio glitch, you crash, as you said, they thought it was part of your performance. In VR, a lot of those things, when you immediately disappear or your audio glitch happens, people kind of think it's part of the show. So at least there's that portion of it where you don't have to freak out as much. People are like, oh wow, that was cool. Mid conversation, they disappeared, and they'll still enjoy the show regardless.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and there's also grace. That's what I found is, everyone who is watching you is also in VR. So they are totally familiar with crashing mid-sentence, their friends disappear. Suddenly they have a bunch of static coming out of their microphone. It's just one of those things. There's so many things that can happen, and I feel like in the audience people are just like, oh yeah, that happened. It's no big deal. And so I see it in the parallel in the physical world, as if somebody accidentally trips on stage, or they clearly forget their line, or something silly happens where it's so obvious and you're just like, yeah, that's fine. Like that's live performance that happens. And so our audiences are getting used to those types of things too, where it's just like, oh, okay, well, they'll be back and it's fine. We had a performance of the VR Dance Academy did a closing ceremonies for the Rain Dance Immersive Festival. And I had been crashing up until that point. I had been crashing really hard for some reason. And I decided to make a crash list. So I said, if I crash, and it was for the improv group or improv portion of the show, and I was going to get suggestions from the audience, and so basically being the host. And so I told the team, if I crash, then this person will take my place until I come back. And then when that person has to perform, this person will take suggestions from the audience. So it's really just about strategy. It's about just thinking a couple steps ahead. Because, in physical theater, you don't have to worry about crashing. You don't have to worry about like, oh, in case I trip on something and I slam my head against the wall and I black out, I need you to ask for suggestions from the audience. Like, that doesn't happen. So it's just about thinking these things through and making sure that things run as smoothly as possible.
So what kinds of things from real theater or were you able to bring into VR that has helped or improved things?
So I think there's a lot of transferable skills from physical theater to virtual theater. One being that sense of ambiguity that when you're on a physical stage performing live, lots of different things could happen. And so when you're used to that, transitioning to the virtual space and understanding that lots of things could happen, that is very helpful. That was really helpful for me to understand that, okay, so this set of things is just a little different than this set of things, but I can definitely prepare myself for some stuff. And so that was really helpful. Understanding, so I've been doing theater since high school, so for quite a long time. I don't want to give out my age, but it's been a while. So I've been able to use a lot of base knowledge from performance, even just like performing to the audience and making sure that I'm seen without, performing with my back to the audience. What else have I been able to bring to the theater in virtual reality? That's a good question. And as soon as I get out, I'll be like, oh my gosh, that thing you're working on. I think, honestly, I feel like, my group that does workshops with organizations, I think that has been a very positive thing, because what we've done is we allowed a space for people to experiment. That not everything has to be, polished for a performance that's ticketed and ready to go to a festival. And so I really enjoyed that part of physical theater, is where you go into a performance space and it's like, here's a reading, here's a dirty draft of my awful play that I need people to hear so I can then edit it and make it better. I really appreciated those spaces of just building community and conversation and connecting with people about art and just talking art and talking approaches to how things can be more clear. And so with this particular group, it's been just really great to have that, to say this is a workshop, not a performance. And we might get some stuff wrong, and that's okay. That's why we're here. And so, because have you noticed? I feel like there's a lot of people in VR are like perfectionists. I think it's with the world building and the avatars.
Yeah, definitely. With people like make worlds and work a lot of stuff in VR, I've noticed since they spend an awful lot of time doing it. I'm going to use DJs for an example. Since they have the ability to hop and do a show every day they possibly can, they tend to be in their skill a lot more than most people would in the physical world. And so with that said, as a lot of them, since they're always doing it, they tend to want to be good at it. If you're doing something every day, whether it's making a world, DJing, playing, or doing plays and interactive experiences, I notice I do agree. A lot of people here do want to do it well. And I do 100% agree that to be perfectionist.
And that's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. But, I feel like we should allow ourselves to play a little bit, and we should allow ourselves to be wrong or to not hit the mark exactly the way that we want. And because I saw that a lot in my theater communities that I've been in. Is a workshop performance of, this is a play reading of, and it just had the music stands and actors reading with the playwright in the audience biting their nails and they're like holding their head. And I really enjoyed it because it was just like, we are your community, we're here to support you. Some people are there to judge, of course, but we're here to support. We're here to support new work and to see things come to fruition. The big Broadway musicals we see in Broadway shows, they all started in some humble space. I think Hamilton started in the basement of a bookstore. And so I really appreciate that evolution of we don't need to start big. We can start small and work our way up to what we really, really intend.
I very much agree. Well, at least in the virtual world, you have, as you said, a lot more room to experiment. And this is kind of like an untouched territory with a lot of the things that happen here. Like, even though I've been here for years, I'm still learning and finding new things that I've never knew was possible. Like, I went to see a show done by a musical performer that blew my mind. I didn't know it was possible. It looked amazing and it flew well. So at least there's that aspect of things as well. You don't really need to be a perfectionist because a lot of us are still figuring it out here ourselves.
Yeah. What did you see? I want to see. What did you see?
Oh, there was a performer named Cerex who did a show with Raindance Immersive, and he builds worlds and stuff.
Oh, Cerex.
Yeah. I've only started seeing a lot of the shows and stuff like that around this year. First couple of years, I was hiding out in Friends Plus and private instances because I was being dragged around by friends, hanging out with them, and public worlds are a very internet place, to put it mildly.
Yes,
so
they are.
when I saw this show like Cerex, I was quite impressed to see what kinds of things are people working on. And then there's the club scene and all the stuff they're working on. I found when I talk to a lot of the people with skills on the outside, let's say like laser light technicians or coders, are bringing their knowledge in VR and improving on the space in here as well. And there's always stuff coming out there too. And I'm just
right.
It surprises me. And this is still a growing scene, so you don't really need to be a perfectionist here, because a lot of people here are still, as I said earlier, figuring it out and working with what we got.
Yeah. I love experimenting and I love playing, and I think that's why I do so much improv, because it's just really throwing your anxiety out the door. First of all, you're in a low stakes situation. What do you're making up a story with another person or two other people. That's already hard, you know. And then it's not even like a story that you know already. It's a story that is kind of created by the audience. I mean, by their suggestions. So like, and you have, you know, 3 different opinions of what could happen, and then you have to like decide, okay, well, that person is, let's just go with that, because you can't say no, my thing. So like, it's just letting go and just being carefree. And what's going to happen if you have a bad scene? Nothing. Nothing. It's just you were silly on stage in front of people, and maybe you didn't make them laugh. but if you had a good time, then who cares? And I've felt that doing improv has definitely been definitely been freeing for me. And so I'm just so attracted to it. I'm not great at it, and I keep doing it because it's just wild. I'm like, what's going to come out of my mouth now? Oh my God, I can't believe I said. In fact, I have friends who say that, like, they will, in the physical world when I was performing improv, they were just like, I just want to go to your shows because I want to find out what's going to happen when you open your mouth. Like, I want to know the words. What random stuff is just going to flow out of your mouth? And I feel in improv, I don't feel that immense freedom yet. Because I do, you know, I understand those actors who are like the head stuff, you know, the thing on your head and the controllers and the whatever. So, and a wire and, but it's improv has been just a really great way to experiment with stuff and to explore story and explore collaborating with people and just finding new ideas. I'm much more comfortable doing sketch comedy, but we're working on that. We're seeing how that works in Horizon Worlds with Unknown Theater. But yeah, it's one of those things. And you know, I just noticed with some of my students, I love them to death, and they do so well, and they're so funny. And sometimes they're just like, I'm just not funny, and I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, they're like, we didn't get the big laugh, and we didn't do the thing, and and it's like, but no, that's not the point. The point is just play, just have fun. If you have fun, then the audience will know you're having fun.
Agreed. You know, you're saying experimenting. Ooh. Go.
Hello.
Oh. I broke that. Huh. It'll buff. If you're enjoying this, please, I would heavily suggest to follow us on any of our social media. If you go down in the thingamabob, down that way, we have a card, metaversedegen.card.co, with all our social media. Feel free to come follow us at any of those places. We've got Discord. We hang out there all the time. Feel free to come chat. Also, we have a Patreon with 2 people who joined up now, and I'm going to give them a little bit of a shout out. One of which is Training Fangs, who's a really good friend of ours, and Forbidden Zero, and also a good friend. So please, come follow us, come hang out. Whoa. That's my cue to go. Enjoy the video.
You are saying experience. I'm never funny. Never at all.
No, never.
I am prompt all the time. No, never at all. Oh, I say what's on my mind. Sometimes it gets me into trouble. But when you have friends that record, we won't mention your name, sir. But when you were talking earlier and everything else like this, you said dance and stuff like this, like jazz and stuff like that. What's that? Yeah. What's that road run into? Because that got my curiosity up. I can't act for squat because I can't read a line to save my ass because of my dyslexia. I'll screw it up and everybody thinks it's weird. But your dancing setup caught my eye. What field do you teach in that? Because I didn't even know that existed in here. I know there's people that teach dance, I know it exists, but I've seen people that teach. We got a friend that teaches dancing, but I've never sat in on what they do or anything like
Sure.
this. You don't, and all that kind of stuff, because they do a different kind of dance. We won't mention what that is either. So, and, so I'm just curious where you said jazz, and I go, I know there's, all you have to do is shake your butt, move things around. You can actually move and look like you're dancing in here, but that don't mean you're actually dancing.
Yeah. So the VR Dance Academy was founded by Dust Bunny, and Dust Bunny teaches a lot of different styles of dance, including belly dance and salsa, ballroom. The list goes on. And I was there as a student first, and she knew that I did improv, and then she asked me if I wanted to teach an improv class, and then I said I don't really do improv well, but I have a whole syllabus for physical comedy, and so we did that. And then she's like, I want you to teach an improv class. And I was like, okay. So I'm like teaching improv and physical comedy at a dance class, dance academy. And I have trained as a dancer as I was growing up. And so I knew how to do my favorite form of dance is tap. I love tap. And second is jazz, and then I can kind of pull hip hop off, but more like from the 90s style, like not what they do now. Like I'm just not that talented, but the 90s hip hop lives in my body, so I could definitely replicate a 90s hip hop dance. And so I just asked her, can I teach a jazz class? And she said yes. And I was like, oh my God, figured out how to teach a jazz class. I mean, I taught when I was younger, and then I focused on theater. So I had always taken dance classes, but more as like a fun exercise, or just to keep myself involved, because it's just something I've always done since I was about 5. So it's never really left me. And so teaching the jazz class was and is still kind of this eye-opening, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. When I get there and I play the music and I lead folks through warm-ups as you would in a regular dance class, because we do our classes in a studio. So it looks like a dance studio. We have a mirror, and we do the best we can to pay attention to people's feet and how they're pointed, or they're flexed, or how their body is. We use pens a lot to show how people's kind of positioning should be. We're very transparent with the fact that we can't see you, we can't see how your body is looking. So please be sure to do this, to point your toe, because I'm pointing my toe and it looks like this. And that's a gross overstatement. My toe is not even pointed. So if I see this, I'm assuming that a student's toe is pointed. But I recently choreographed my first dance in VR, and that was the Singing in the Rain, and that's what we performed at the closing ceremonies. One of the dances that was performed at the closing ceremonies, a rain dance immersive. That was a huge honor. I couldn't believe we were able to pull it off, only because it was a really long song. It was so long. Dust Bunny was actually the person to say, hey, let's why don't you do a song to dance to Singing in the Rain? And I was like, yeah. And then I heard the whole thing. I was like, that's 4.5 minutes long. How am I going to do that? It's such a long song. Because it's not because I couldn't think of something or I didn't trust the students. It's because, we only meet once a week for an hour. And so we only had a certain amount of time to get all that choreography learned and practiced and rehearsed and fine-tuned. And what we did was I ended up just cutting off 1 minute at the beginning because there's a long intro, and I was like, that's fine, people will get it. We don't need the whole thing, and we faded in, and we performed 3.5 minutes of it. I don't know if you're familiar with Singing in the Rain, but I actually hadn't seen the movie. I don't know how I had not seen the movie, but I was very familiar with the song, and so I checked it out on YouTube, and it's actually, Gene Kelly singing in the rain. He's so in love. He just dances in the rain, and everything is great. And then he's actually stopped by a police officer because he's singing in the rain, and then is told to stop, and so he stops. And walks away. And I was like, we got to have that. So we ended up having a police officer come in at the end of the dance. And, we all apologized. And we ended up getting away with it, but it was just fun. It was fun to tell a story with dance because it was so different from what I had been used to doing. It was a real, because when I was doing dance in the physical world, I did like to tell stories with my dance. They were very narrative. And so to be able to have a narrative in a dance was just, in VR, was probably the highlight of my year. I've had a really interesting year, but that was definitely a highlight. Raptor, Dirty Raptor, did I answer the question, or were you more interested in the mechanics? I kind of went theoretical.
Yeah. Hey, she plays our trick. Hey, let's go fishing. Shit, it's stuck in the tree. Holy Christ, I'm never going to get that bitch down. Well, yeah. Pretty much you got close to it, but it's mostly the physical part of it. What you have to go through, the physical part of what to get somebody to go, hey, teach me how to dance. Stuff like this. I can country dance in real life like you wouldn't believe. But when you get into what people say, the person that taught me and everything else like this, you got to realize this guy's 6'6", right? Had no experience at all. He teached, but he was the kind of person that he'd sit there and stand back. If there was a new type of dance, it didn't matter what it was. It could be any style. If it could be Western, it could be country dancing, it could be jazz, anything. And that man would sit there and watch and everything else. And he walked up to him, and everything else. Like, I've seen this guy twirl and swing underneath a 12-year-old girl.
Whoa.
And he's 6'6". He's 6'6".
Wow.
He could literally spin on his own. And you're sitting there, and all of a sudden like this, and he goes, I think I can do that. And just sat there and watched what they were doing. And then you go, you never did this? He goes, no, but I bet you I could do it. And he's out there just on the floor like he's been doing it for years. It just blew your freaking mind. Well, he started teaching dance. He started teaching dancing and stuff like this. And what was sad, really sad, that when he was teaching and stuff like this, and he was teaching and everything else like this to me, because I always do dancing backwards so the person cannot lead. I do it all. And he used to laugh at me all the time. You're supposed to start this foot. And I'd start the opposite way. And he goes, why are you doing that? You're screwing her up because she can't lead. He goes, well, that is a thought. I never thought of it that way. But he had the opportunity. I'm not going to mention his name. He had the opportunity to go to Japan for a year, all expenses paid and everything, to teach country dance, everything he had. And he said no. I go, you are nuts. They only gave him 24 hours to make up his mind because they were flying back. They just ended up where he was for some stupid reason dancing and teaching, and they saw what he was doing, and he said no. I go, are you nuts? He goes, I can't do that. I'm working for a farmer. He worked for a farmer. I go, all expenses paid plus everything, your wages on top of it, and it wasn't a small chunk of change. All he had to do was that we'll go get you your airline ticket right now, and you'll be flight out tomorrow morning. He didn't take it. He did not take it because he wasn't for sure Well, you got to realize here he is. You got this 6'6" guy standing around with people from Japan that are shorter than him. You know, they're gonna look at you like you're the green giant from hell, and everything else. And that's what ran through his mind. He thought he was going to be looked down as, and everything else like this. And they convinced him no, because it wouldn't be that, because he's teaching something to a culture that has no idea how it works, and so forth like this. And I go, man, you could have really changed a lot just by going over. He kicks himself today for not going. He was going to have been gone for a whole year. He didn't have family, you know. He didn't even have a dog. He didn't have dog, cat, nothing. He just lived by himself. But he was a quiet guy. And I always gave him crap because the only way he actually flirted on the floor or anything like that was dancing. You got him off the floor. He just went back to normal being quiet. You couldn't get a word out of him edgewise. He just the way he was. It was just weird. He was just who he was, but he was a damn good guy and everything else. But man, that man could boogie on the floor. I've seen him different types of line dances. I've seen him do all kinds of stuff. And you go, wow, did you see that? And he goes, no, I saw it on TV. I thought I'd give it a try out on the floor. Are you serious? You watched something on TV and you picked it up that quick? He goes, yeah. You know, there's natural people even out there bringing it in here is what I'm getting at. You bring it in here and, you know, somebody will see you over there boogieing around and, you know, you're watching. But if you know, don't get me wrong, you go to raves and you get stuff like this. It's not always just the music. Look at the people on the floor. You know, they're the guys that are DJing or doing raves and stuff like that. Anyway, but you got actual people that are actually burning up the floor. And I'll walk in there, nobody pays attention to me. I'm just a short little guy running around and people step on me and all that kind of stuff and don't go there. Don't you go there. And all this kind of stuff like this. And you stand back and watch. I used to do it even when I went to bars, Western bars, or any kind like that. You watch the people on the floor. They actually, it's weird that they're bringing it like what you're doing. You're bringing it into VR. And it might be acting, it could be dancing, it could play music. You have an open field. And this is what's so great for people like me or you or Lion. If you're a kind of person, you look beyond what's going on, even on the stage. Me, I got dyslexia. I get on stage, I'll screw up a nightmare. I don't care what it is. You got to have a simple code, green fish code, and all that kind of stuff, and I'd still screw it up. It's not the stage that scares me, it's the reading. There is a world in here. We found that out, 3 nights ago, that you can actually be an actor and the audience gets to put in lines, part of the script.
Oh,
audience
anarchy.
Yeah.
Audience anarchy.
We went in there and
yeah,
we had a blast in there. Some of the stuff people were putting in there. You can
go in there for hours.
Oh yeah, you're in there just having a field day because you just type it in what it is, and then they got me on. They made me the troll on the bridge. Yeah, that was pretty fun. They said I did a good job of being a troll. I go, wow,
well, there you go. So
no problem.
You could perform on stage. You did it. You did it. And I think that's the thing. So I totally get the imposter syndrome that you're talking about with your friend, because it's scary teaching people, because you're putting yourself out there as well, you may not be doing this, but they will see you as the expert. They will see you as the person who knows it all. And you have to just be like, I don't know it all. This is what I do know, and this is what I'm sharing with you. So I get it. Where if he was intimidated by that moment of teaching, I was lucky enough when I started teaching jazz. I had been teaching in VR for almost a year, so I was teaching my physical comedy class and my improv class with Virtual Reality Dance Academy. And then I was facilitating group meetings, workshops at Skits and Bits. And then I had physical worlds teaching experience too. So I had these, I guess, I had a foundation to teach. So it wasn't like, how am I going to do this? I understood the community that I was going to be working with. I understood that some of them Some folks are a little bit more advanced than others when it comes to dance. Some folks, this is the first time they're taking dance ever, and I have to readjust my expectations of some folks, or not some folks, but just, the outcome that I have. I could create a highly technical dance. First of all, would it translate in VR? I'm not sure. So a lot of the stuff the choreography that happens, I do in the physical space, and then I bring it into VR and I test it to see if it translates. And if it doesn't translate, if it's too hard, then, or if it doesn't look good, then I'll readjust it. And then, for the steps, the steps are very what I do is I will start off my class with a warm-up, and then we will cover steps that will be in the dance. And so I'll do like 3 or 4 steps that will kind of do drills of and practice. And then I say, okay, now for the next part of the class, we'll teach the dance, and then they'll be like, oh, those are the steps we did in the drills. So and that's a formula that I use from physical dance classes, is you do the warm-up, you do drills, you do the choreography, and then you do the cool down. And so I was able to I bring that, and Dusty does the same thing, and I think all the other teachers are very consistent with that format, where we make sure that folks have the foundation of doing these steps before we, make them do it in a choreography, because that wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be fair for folks to just be expected to learn a choreography with these steps where I have no idea what that is. Another thing is, like, today I have a wire on, but normally I go wireless, and that's another thing I have to take into consideration, is a lot of my students they're wired in. So if we do a turn one way, we have to do a turn the opposite way. So there are lots of things that I understand because of working with the community for the last year. If I were to just step in, I think that I would kind of have a culture shock of not understanding what, and I have taken dance classes at the dance academy. So as a student, I know what I would want. And then also working with students as a teacher, I've learned to incorporate their interests and what they need into my classes, rather than I want you to do this, because it's not about me. It's about these folks who are taking time out of their day to learn an art form that they either they're taking it for the first time, like I said, or they don't have access to it where they're at. So it's really all about them. So when I do these steps, I make sure that we're always covering them. I'm always asking if they have questions, always open to review, and then having extra practice dates as well before the shows, because I just want to make sure everyone feels supported and they feel confident when they're on the stage.
I got a question. I got another one.
Yeah.
Instead of just strictly stage, do you just strictly teach dancing without having the world to be on the stage? Do you ever had people come up and ask you, hey, I just want to learn to dance, like somebody I know, won't mention names, that would like to learn how to dance? Yes, I'm talking to you, Line. And yeah, he says he can't dance. This boy says, sits here and tells me, hey, Lon,
so many people say they can't dance. Let me tell you, there are so many times when we have new students that are like, I can't dance. I'm so terrible. I'm awful. I'm, whatever. They get in the studio, they're picking it up. They're like doing turns. They're like doing footwork I've never seen before. And they're just on fire. And I'm just like, are you the person who wrote the Discord that you couldn't dance? Like, where is this coming from? So I think all of us we're our own worst critics, right? We are probably a little more humble than we need to be sometimes. And we actually do have classes that focus on just kind of freestyling. So and I believe the way those classes are structured is that they'll teach certain steps at the top of the class, and then the rest of the class will be what's called a cipher. So everybody stands in a circle, and then people go into the middle of the circle and they freestyle, and then they leave the circle and someone else comes in. So it's very much like how you can learn how to dance in a social situation, like a club or a cipher, because they have those within different communities.
How often do you take up lessons? Because I want him enrolled.
Oh, there. So we have classes of like 6 days a week throughout the day.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so they're really available for lots of folks to take, lots of different opportunities and styles. So we have hip hop and what else? And the ones I mentioned before. We have line dancing, Dirty Raptor, if you're interested in joining.
Wow, thanks. Bring me out on the old age situation. There we go.
So yeah, just a lot of opportunities, and we're always growing. We're always, Dusty is always adding more stuff to the community, because that's what we are. We're a community. We're a dance academy. We do dance, but then we also have other opportunities to just hang out. Once a week, there's a community hangout, and then we will occasionally, like, I know my improv group, we would occasionally like go to other improv shows across Vrchat just to check them out. There's gaming nights. There are a lot of opportunities to just get to know folks. So it's not just a transactional. You show up, you take the class, you go away. You actually show up and you make friends. And that's what I really love about the academy and being associated with it and being a part of it, is that I feel like I'm not just a teacher there. I'm a part of a community.
Okay. So I have a question that's going to backtrack a bit.
Yeah.
The virtual experience, when you guys do like the interactive experiences, what are those like, and what was your first thoughts when you've jumped into it?
The interactive experiences.
Like
which.
Oh, sorry. The interactive experience is like when you're doing where you're in a world and you do an interactive experience with the audience, where you guys are the actors improving all your.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Sorry for doing a hard backtrack.
So yeah.
I was just curious.
No, I was just like, what?
Wow, you're confusing the guests. What the hell's wrong with you?
Where am I? What part of my life are we talking about? There's so many different things. Oh my God. Yes. Okay. So yeah, interacting in VR is very different from interacting in the physical space. And we found that out with Skits and Bits actually did a murder mystery show with Fia and the virtual reality show with TFM Johnny as our victim. And what we did was basically a basic murder mystery where we had Johnny, and he had various characters involved with his life showing up to his performance, and yeah, we all were like, we have an issue with Johnny because we have these are reasons why we have an issue with them. And so Johnny dies, and then the crowd is asked, who killed Johnny? And so we were all like, I think there were maybe 8 of us who were main suspects. And we ran everybody through the virtual reality show's studios looking for clues who killed Johnny, and then we were acting. Now, before that, we knew that we'd have to have interaction, and I was studying interactive acting prior to, and I was like, there are some things we need to hit. So I kind of created this little document pulling together all these workshops I've been to and all these books I've read and compiled them up. And I'm like, this is not written by me. This is like a collaborative effort of like research. And I taught folks how to, there's this physical. We can't feel people. We can't sense if they're behind us. So if you're interacting, you want to make sure that everybody is feeling welcome. And real life, physical space, you can feel somebody in back of you. You can sense their presence. In VR, you can't. And so just reminding ourselves to always turn around a little bit, or to always like make sure you're looking away. To see if someone's behind you. When you're talking to somebody, you put your arm out to them. So people know you're talking directly to them, because we have dead eyes. And we can't, majority of us anyway, we can't really like focus on somebody if we're going to talk to somebody. And then there's also, there was a lot of crowding because there were a lot of people. So we learned how to cut through a crowd and talk to somebody by, again, reaching out to somebody and speaking to them directly. Either looking at their name tag or mentioning something on their avatar, mainly what they're wearing. So I love those blue highlights. Those are fantastic. Now, how do you know Johnny? And we practiced how to do that. And those are some things in the physical world that, you definitely mention what they're wearing, or bringing like, I love the color of your eyes or something like that, but you don't necessarily have to point to them as you're walking to them. You can just make eye contact and you can just wave at them, and they know they're oh hi, how's it going. But in VR, there's that extra step you have to take of reaching out and making a little bit more of an effort to identify who you want to interact with. And then also sometimes people have problems with their microphones, so you have to kind of wait and see if they want to interact. Whereas in real life, people are like, no, I'm not interested. Like, I'm just here for the immersion. Like, I don't want to interact. And you're okay, cool. But then, and you can just walk away. But in VR, there's the extra layer of, is it the tech, or do they not want to interact with me? Are they nonverbal? And now they're typing something. So now I'm waiting for them to type out their thing. And I have another person who wants to talk to me, but now I've engaged with this person. And so it's similar to interactive acting, where you have a lot of things going on. You have to keep track of things, but just the added level of without having physicalization, there's that level that you have to be hyper aware of everything around you all the time, just to make sure that every audience member feels welcome, make sure that feels part of it, that they, if they want to be, because we don't like to force people into interactive situations. That's awful. Because I've been to interactive shows where I'm like, nope, I'm in the back. Like, today's not the day. Like, I just want to watch what's happening. So I totally understand those folks who just want to observe. So it's a additional layer of acting. I know after that particular show, I was incredibly tired. I mean, my throat was sore from talking so much, because I had this awful nondescript New York accent. I don't even know. I don't do accents well, so I probably offended a lot of people just by having this general New York accent. She talked like this, and it was just really high, and it was just really awful. And I just talked to people. Oh my God, how you doing? And it was awful. Even though I warmed up my voice, it was just like vocal fry for like the next 2 weeks. And then mentally, I was just shut down for two days, because I was like, that was a lot of work. Plus, I had helped write the script. So on top of that, it was a lot. It was a lot of stuff. But yeah, for interactive work, it's just different, because you don't have that physical touch. You don't have that physical awareness. So you have to keep that in mind as you're kind of going through. And it's really easy to just kind of skip someone over. And once you recognize it, all you have to do is just, I don't know. If I know that's happened, and it's just about going, oh, hi, friends. Sorry, you didn't catch my eye. So just a lot of layers, a lot of additional layers. interactive acting is incredibly difficult.
Hmm. So what are some of the differences in storytelling style versus a regular stage and then interactive storytelling?
Oh, so for storytelling on a stage, I mean, you just have a proscenium, and I feel like it's really focused on the words in that way. I feel like, your words are very, like, if you go to a Moth performance, I don't know if you're familiar with that storytelling group, but that people do personal stories. About 5 minutes personal stories, like, oh, when I was 15, this thing happened to me, blah. And so it's very much a person on a stage in front of an audience, and they're telling you their words, or telling you their story. And I really do think it is focused on the words and how it's crafted. And then, if a person has presence, it's even better, right? If the person is warm and animated, then people really get into it, and then that's a perfect story, where you have all the things coming through. But there are plenty of folks who don't have a great kind of, I guess, expression, but their words are beautiful, and you get caught up in the words and how they're told. And I'm thinking like David Sedaris, for example. He's very monotone for the most part, and part of the charm is how David Sedaris reads. But for me, it's the words and how David Sedaris puts them together. In interactive, I think it's more emotionally based. I think it's more about how you are making the other person feel and the kind of goals you want to set for what you want the audience to get out of it. And it becomes less about the structure of the sentences and maybe not even, maybe you don't even follow a script. Some interactive artists just have bullet points that they follow, and they just kind of go for it. They're like, for one show I was doing, it's called Off Rail, and we performed it in VRchat, and it was very much like, hit these bullet points. And it was wild. It was a comedy. We were supposed to be like in a Western AI world, and we wanted, our big thing is we wanted the audience to just kind of feel chaos in a controlled situation, and wanted them to have fun, and wanted them to like just run around and get a little wild. And as long as they were doing that, that was fine. And so we all had characters, and then we had kind of a character backstory of who they are and what they would say in certain situations. And then we had different bullet points that we would focus on to keep the narrative going, and then we would just go. And an hour later, the show is over, and everybody was like, what just happened? That was wild. And when people said that, we're like, yes, like we did our job.
Oh.
So yeah, that's my thoughts. I mean, get another person in here, and they might have a different approach and a different definition. But just sitting here right now, that's what I'm thinking of. And when I'm thinking storytelling, also when it's on the stage, storytelling in regards to plays, I think also the words are important. So not just standing up on stage giving a monologue or a personal story. I think playwriting is a craft, and it's magical. And it's not that it can't be done in VR, but I think in VR interaction is definitely preferred. You can have a script in VR. I've performed with the script in VR, but I think you find that you can put it away for a minute and live in the moment more than you can when you're on stage, unless that's the way that the play was crafted, where you have people just riffing just on script. And there you have the audience for stage work. You have audience in one place, and then the stage. And the audience in a proscenium show, they know what they're doing. They know their role, so they just walk in, they sit on the seat, and they watch the show. And very few of them are expecting to be interacted with. Whereas at an interactive show, people are going because they want to have a more immersive experience, and maybe some people want to get involved with the performance because they enjoy that, enjoy a little role playing.
So, how would one progress the story in an interactive experience if you're trying to tell a certain tale during the event?
I think it would be about having those bullet points in place. I think it would be about making sure that you hit you hit your first part in the story, and then you have, so for example in off rail, that's exactly what we did, is we had it chunked out into certain approaches, and we're like, okay, so in this part we're going to be on stage in the bar, and that's when everybody's going to learn about this experiment that the bar owner or the club owner is running. And that's going to be scripted, and we want to make sure that we lay the foundation of the story. And so we had that done. Now we're going to go to another place. This is what we want to happen. These are the top 3 things that can happen, and let's play. But then when we feel it's time, now we need to go to the second set. These are the next things that need to happen to move the story forward. So it's not just kind of like playtime. It's not just, we're kind of in a situation where we're hanging out for 3 or 4 hours exploring, which that's a whole other genre that I don't have any idea about, like role playing. I don't know how that works. But yeah, you as a performer, what your story is, and you always make sure to be in charge of it. You can have audience members that derail you a little bit, but you as a performer always has to find a way to bring it back and then move it forward, because then you could just be hanging out with a bunch of people. And it's like, well, what's gonna happen now? I don't know. So yeah, having your milestones in your narrative of what you need to hit, so that the audience gets the performance that you intended, is crucial and different from a stage performance where it's just scripted out and you just perform it.
Okay. Did you ever do anything similar in the real world? Any experience doing anything close to it?
No, I didn't. I did not. And that's the wild thing. So I went from doing physical theater on stage where everything was scripted, or improv. So that was the only thing that wasn't scripted and kind of interactive, right? Because we asked for audience participation and suggestions and stuff like that. But generally, the stuff that the interactive, immersive world, I didn't have really any experience in at all. I had done some dramaturgy work for a interactive, immersive show in San Francisco called Speakeasy. But that was just dramaturgical work. It wasn't me like getting in there, really showing up to rehearsals and like helping out or anything like that. And then I had seen Sleep No More in New York City, and that was it. Really, that it was just a physical world performance, and then I jumped into VR. I was just like, what? So earlier I was mentioning it's like this whole new education for me, where I'm kind of looking back at books and whatever. So the people who are probably the most comfortable in the space worked in immersive and interactive in the physical world, and then they brought it to VR. But I'm in the place now where I am kind of pushing proscenium. I'm keeping proscenium like in my sightline, but I need to continue doing my homework on immersive and interactive work. So that means I'm reading, I'm going to see shows when I can. I'm having discussions with people. I'm testing things out. And so yeah, it's been really interesting because it doesn't make any sense how I made this leap, right? From it's like, oh, I feel like I'm missing a whole a whole set of a bunch of information. So it makes it fun. It makes it fun because then I get to learn all this stuff, and then I get to test it, and I get to see what's going on, and see how it translates to me. And it's been really interesting going to interactive and immersive work in the physical world. Last year, I was in London for about 6 weeks at an artist residency with the theater over there, and I was like, right, I'm going to see all the stuff, all I can. And so I ended up seeing a ton of stuff, and you can't really take the place of actually witnessing it. So I read a bunch of books, but to actually go and experience it is more than I could ever get from a book, I think. So I was very lucky that I was able to do that. That I think I saw so much theater in that time. And so if anybody's interested in like interactive work, go see the work that's being done right now, and get into those conversations and talk with people, because that's probably the best way to learn how to do this.
So what are some things within this scene as you were learning these new skills that was harder for you to learn and get used to, and how did you overcome them?
Oh, there's so many things. Feel like my soul is being laid bare. Gosh.
That's okay. We got a lot of ice here. It'll keep it on ice. We'll keep it to a minimum.
All right. Let's see. So many things. I mean, I think I'm just gonna. Okay. I think biggest hurdles was understanding how to interact, and because you think you know how to engage with a person, and in reality, it's just not what you think it it is. There are a lot more nuances, and there are a lot more approaches than you could ever fathom. And the people who have been doing interactive acting have just done an amazing work. And just to think about how Disney characters interact with people. If you go to a live murder mystery, and see how folks interact, it's incredible to see how people work. And it's a skill and it's an art. And I think it's easily taken for granted that it's a skill and it's an art because they make it look so easy. And so I think when I started interacting, it was like, hey, how's it going? And people were like, oh my God, like I don't even have my headset on and my volume's too high. And oh my gosh, and, just thinking about that kind of stuff, and not pushing people who don't want to interact, and, just, learning those kind of just the basic rules of interaction. I think that it's still evolving, and trying to understand about how I can do it better. Narrative design is also on top, probably before interactive acting is narrative design, because I come from a script writing background. I'm used to having the script in front of me with the stage directions, and this person says this and this person says this, and then this is probably where the audience laughs. And coming into an interactive space is a lot different than putting it in VR. Then there's other expectations as well. And so I've been doing a lot of research on how to write for this space in a way that is good for everybody. The workshop group was the initial plan, was to use it as a writing group for people who are interested. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough people to create a writing group. We just have like random people who are like, I'm interested. And so we're like, okay, great, we'll do that. And, being on the kind of organization committee for that, and seeing how to approach different works has been really helpful. I've also started reaching out to various game designers that I've met through different classes or, conferences, and just saying, hey, let's talk. How do you approach writing a game? How do you approach narrative design in a game? Just so I can hear different perspectives and how I can bring a different approach to my writing. And one of the really interesting things is I had some scripts from the physical world that I really enjoyed, and I was like, I want to hear them in VR, and I want to hear them read by actors. And I was like, I really want to do these in VR. And after I heard them being read by actors in VR, I was like, I never want to see this in VR. I can't do anything. I can't do anything to the script. One, because I like the script. I like how it goes. I like it. And two, I just don't want to add anything to it to make it interesting in this space. It was I think there were two scripts that I could put together and make something interesting. And then the other 3 scripts was just like, psh, no, those are just for the stage and the physical world. Like those will probably never be in VR. In a way, and maybe later, right? Maybe I will learn more. But at this point in my career, I was like, I can't see spending time on these things because it's just too hard. I have other ideas that I want to work on. So that has been really interesting and humbling, let me tell you. To just be, and it's not like you dancing like, oh, I don't know how to dance, and then you are on fire on the dance floor. It's more like, I really like this, and it doesn't work. Like, I'm just being honest with myself. So that has been really interesting, like learning that level of humility in this space. Just be like, if I wasn't humble before, I am now.
How did you overcome some of those things that you've mentioned? Like, how did you work through those hurdles you had to get through for the space? And
yeah, so I think you mean like how did I get through feeling?
Sorry,
like
yeah,
I'd never see that script in VR?
I should have been a lot more specific. I do apologize. I'm very vague sometimes. Okay. How did you work through the script writing within VR versus real life when you're doing it? How did you overcome some of those issues?
I think it's about asking for feedback, honest feedback from folks. It's about getting it in the space, like hearing it, and just for me, it was about being honest with myself. Like, I have so many other ideas for stories that I believe would work in this space. And I have these other stories that just don't really click. Where am I going to spend my time? Am I going to spend my, that's where it comes down to it, because I have so many projects I'm working on, and I teach, and, I do a lot of stuff. So it's really about how can I be, I think that's when you get mechanical, right? Where it's just like, how can I be efficient with my time? What is more fun, working through this thing that I'm not really passionate about to be in VR, or working with this story that I feel is definitely going to work in VR? And, and that's the thing. It's like, I always keep these stories very close. I'm thinking about them all the time. And if they come to fruition, if they start kind of begging for me to pay attention to them, then I will. But I'm not going to sit there at my computer being like, and then we'll have a spaceship come and pick them up and take them to another planet, or like, this is when the audience comes in and storms the living room. It's just like, I'm not interested in pushing. I am more interested in seeing what comes organically. And as I get more exposure to different types of stories, and as I get exposure to different mechanics of storytelling, I think these will show up, but maybe not in the way that I expect them to, or written them, or as I wrote them, like, originally. Maybe I'll find a character. Maybe I'll find maybe I'll find an interaction that starts something else. But they're and the kinds of plays that I'm thinking about, they're just that I wrote that are kind of kitchen sink dramas. Where it's naturalistic. It's a drama between two people, and it may not be interesting in this setting unless I do something very specific to it. Right now, I don't know what those things are, though.
So when you're listening back at your own work, when you're having an actor read your stuff and you're deciding what does and doesn't work, what is it you're looking for to decide whether it works or doesn't work?
At first when we had the reading, I didn't know what to have as like a list of things to look for. And so I just sat and I listened. And there were some of them where I'm like, I am bored. And the actors were fine. It had nothing to do with the actors. I was very familiar with the script, so I knew what was coming next. It was just, I was picturing it in a space that was, I was like, this is not interesting to me. And it could be that the script isn't as interesting as I think. You know what I'm saying? Like, how we write stuff when we're younger and we're like, this is so amazing. And then like you pull it out 5 years later, or even like a drawing or a photograph or anything. And then you pull it out and you're like, what was I thinking? Like poetry. Oh my God. Poetry from my early 20s is just trash. And like at the time I thought it was amazing. And now I look at it and I'm like, oh girl, like what? What were you thinking? You read that like live in front of people. And so that's the thing, is like I heard this. As I hear the words coming back at me, I'm like, is this good or is this my ego, right? Is this actually a interesting drama? And some of them, it was like some lines I'm like, that could be better. But as a total show, I was like, why is this in VR? Why am I putting this here? Is it just to perform it on a stage, or can it be something transcendent? And do I want it just on stage, or do I want it to be something more immersive, interactive? And if I'm listening to something on stage and it's, because remember, I'm open to both forms. I'm open to both staged performances in VR and also interactive and immersive. But if I'm watching this on a stage in VR and I'm bored, something is missing. Something's not there. And so that is definitely a check mark, right? Like, I'm bored. Like, are you bored? That should be something I'm writing down. Another thing is, the world design. If I'm creating something right now, I don't have the technical ability to create worlds. That's what's stopping. Unfortunately, that's what's stopping me from producing anything, is because I don't have a team behind me. I don't have a world builder or an avatar builder or anything like that. So I am really just kind of in a box of, okay, well, this stage is available, right? And so if I'm thinking things are too fantastical, or if I'm thinking I can't even build a living room, I think for me that's difficult, right? Unfortunately, right now, that's part of the thing. Can I personally build this world? Like, I can upload something from Unity, right? A really basic thing. It's going to be trash. It's not going to be cute. Could I get somebody to do it for me? Yes, but it has to be super simple, because I don't have the funds to pay somebody the right amount of money to get them to design something that I want. So, or I'm borrowing the time from people who are already very busy, and so that's another thing that I have on my list is, can I get this done? Can I have somebody help me? Do I know somebody who can help me build the actual set for this? Another thing is like, are the characters engaging? Are they interesting? I guess that goes back to the first point of being boring. Is this a relevant storyline that people want to see? I don't know. Um, there are all these things that come up when you're listening, and relevance is, in my head I was like, it doesn't matter, because it's about your point of view and your perspective. But there's still that, like, do people want to see this? Like, are people interested in seeing this particular story? Does it speak to people? I know one of the scripts that I really loved has a lot of dated references, like really dated references, and I'm like, I have to do an overhaul of this. Or is it people in a certain age group that I'm speaking to? And if it is, are people interested in hearing their side of things? Maybe they are. But those are the kind of things that go through my head at like 1,000 miles per hour when I'm listening to people read my stuff. And I wish I could just sit and listen and be zen and like just pay attention. And I just can't. There are just so many things going through my head. Sometimes I'm happy just to hear actors read my words, because I've worked so hard. I got emotional right then.
It's okay.
But yeah, I said I wasn't gonna cry. But yeah, it's sometimes it's nice to just hear actors performing your words and just being like, I did a thing. I finished this. I finished a play, And I think as I've gotten older, I've realized that I have to credit myself with those things as well. I could get down on myself all I want. I could say this is irrelevant, or who wants to hear this, or this is boring. How am I going to do this? I don't have the resources. But at the end of the day, I've given myself recently, like over the past year, I've given myself a lot of grace in regards to what I've actually been able to finish and what I do with my time. That I think it's pretty rad that I create these things. And when I was doing this in the physical world, I was younger, and it was pre-pandemic, and I think I took a lot of stuff for granted. The fact that I would write sketch comedy with friends, or I'd perform with friends doing improv shows, or I'd write plays and produce them, and people would come and pay to see it. And I think now I'm recognizing the magic of that, and without sounding too cheesy, but like really appreciating the process and having had contributed something artistically and creatively into the world.
I would say have a lot more faith in yourself. What you're making is fantastic and amazing. I believe there's a saying, it is, the artist is always their own harshest critic. One of my favorite authors, who's H.P. Lovecraft, one of his most well-known stories, The Shadow of Innsmouth, he loathed, sat at a desk. Later on, when his family found it and posted it, everyone loved it. So have more faith in your own work. Enjoy what you do.
Thank you, Lion Turtle.
Yeah.
Maybe I will. You know what? Afterwards, after this, I think I'm gonna check out those scripts, and I'm like, those are boring. I'm gonna check them out again. I'm gonna see what I can do. I'm gonna now that I'm talking about it, because I hadn't thought about that reading for a while. But I do know that was one of the hard times where I was just like, I really like these scripts, and they don't seem to work. Or but I am open to them working. I don't think anything is a hard no. I think you can always find some way to do things. Some of my favorite artists have they so I know that, so when I was in, I'm gonna date myself, I don't care, it doesn't matter. So when I was in college, Radiohead released True Love Waits on a pirated MP3. No, they didn't release it. Someone else did. Some angel in the world recorded it at their concert, put it on the internet, and we all downloaded it. We all, meaning all the Radiohead fans, right? And we're like, what is this song? It is gorgeous. When is it coming out? And every year we thought it would come out in the next album, and it didn't come out onto an album until 20 years later. And I've always used that as an example because I'm just like, that is something that I absolutely appreciate. They didn't throw it away. They didn't say it's it's awful, it's stupid, it's whatever. It's just not right now. It needs more work. We need to do something else to it, or we need to find the right album for it to live in. And I've liked to look at that as a way that I treat my own work. So I see my work, and if something does bore me, I try to find something else to do with it, or I always recognize, remember that song, Remember True Love Waits, and maybe it will live some other time in some other space where it is appropriate. Right now, I don't know what to do with them, Lion Turtle. I was gonna call you Lionheart.
It's okay. I've been called weirder
things. You inspired me so much. You inspired me. Called you Lionheart, Lion Turtle. And so that's the thing is I think there's opportunity for those scripts maybe later.
I'll just using that as an example with what you're doing here in VR, whether it's dancing, making plays and stories to be told, you're kind of on a frontier within the metaverse and VR. Like, have more faith in yourself. It's amazing to see all these things happen, whether it's interactive experiences,
Thank you.
VR versions of
I
things.
appreciate it.
Like, I'm like a kid in a candy store and I see all this stuff. I'm excited to see a lot of stuff like with what you're working on. It's fantastic. I enjoy it, and I just want to see you have more faith in yourself and what you're building. It's fantastic.
I will. Yay. I will. No, and that's the thing. It's like I think it's, a lot of my emo-ish approach comes from just being tired. I am doing so much. I work so much. And a lot of people I know work so much. And we're, this is my job. This is what I do. I mean, I also teach at a university, but this is my main focus. And so I am, in the morning, I am waking up to this and thinking about it and working on it and reaching out to people and having meetings and teaching classes and reading books and watching plays. I'm watching plays on TV, through, various ways. I'm also like reading plays, stage plays, to see, just understanding, just giving myself a reintroductory to structure and character development and things like that. I'm writing. I mean, it's just like, it's nonstop. So that's the thing is, like, if you were to talk to other folks in my medium, I'm sure they'd also be like, we're awful. Even though like they're clearly not, it's just there's an exhaustion and, because and a passion that it's we're kind of always fighting. We're going against the grain. And like you said, just being on the fringe of stuff. It is exciting, but sometimes it's like, gosh, I'm posting stuff on my social media and nobody's caring. Nobody's giving me a like. And I know that's stupid, right? It's all the algorithm, right? But still, nobody's interested, or they make fun of it, or they give me a nasty remark, or, and it's just like, it just gets tiring. It just gets exhausting, always pushing. The good days are really good, where you're just like, this is amazing. Like, for example, for Rack Pack Improv, it's an improv group in Vrchat, led by Reznov, and we raise money for charities. And that's been such a great opportunity to be a part of. And just reminding myself about those things that we do. We're raising money for Trevor Project, Toys for Tots, and for food shelters food pantries, and stuff like that. So yeah, the good days are really good. It's just sometimes it's just I'm doing a lot. I'm tired. I'm tired.
I don't blame
it's
you.
like, and it's so funny. It's so funny because, in 2 weeks, last 2 weeks of December, I'm like, I'm not doing anything. Of course, I'll do something. Of course, I will. Of course, I will. But yeah, it's just like I want to take 2 weeks and just be like decompress from everything I did, all the projects and all the things that I'm doing in the future because I have some stuff lined up in the beginning of the year that I'm pretty excited about. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. So, but thank you. I appreciate it. I will be lighter on myself. Definitely. I will be lighter on myself to
I can
take a
give
step
you a
back.
little piece. I give you a little piece of advice that I try to tell everybody, even if you, like you say, me and Line talk about it all the time and everything else like this. Even if you have a bad word, no matter what, somebody's giving you crap or anything like that, you still got their attention just for that second. And that means more.
That's right.
Right. You means more than nothing. They still took the time to say something, even if it's bad. You don't look at the bad and ugly with it. I got you to say something. And that's better than nothing. Because if you don't get nothing or anything like this, it's not what you've done, it's the small things, even in real life. Everybody overlooks. Everybody wants the big fish. But look out for the little fish when it starts to sneak up. Me and Lion have done it.
Hey.
It'll come out when you least expect it, and you're going to go, see what I caught? And people going, wow, where'd you catch that fish at? Because it's not what you do or how you do it. Some of it is, but it's how you look at it and take it in and everything else like this. And when you do, it don't matter anymore because you have done it. You're doing something that you people in here might not know it's here. Like me and Lion, acting, DJing, raves, whatever. It's part of something that's in here. And a lot of people go, well, a lot of people, you don't see them dancing on the floor and it don't matter. You get one person on the floor for 5 seconds or one person on a stage for 5 minutes. You've done something. And don't ridicule yourself into a hole going, yeah, it's not going to go anywhere. You don't know because, one, guess what? Most people are scared to come up and tell you anything because of your reaction.
That's true.
They don't know how you're going to react, so they back down and say nothing. It's like that kid in the school when a teacher asks you a question. Do you raise your hand or look like an idiot? Even if it's wrong. Yeah, wrong answer is still a wrong answer, but when you get corrected, at least you know it's right. And that's the way it's bad. You just stand back going, no, I don't know if I should say anything. I don't want to make it, I'm coming off that I'm sounding bad and it's actually good. They just don't know how to throw it out there because they're not showed you can't. Well, I'm sorry to inform you, you can, folks. You can give a little bit of advice if it's all you have to say is thank you and wow, or thank you, I like the show. Even if you don't have an opinion, a thank you is nothing. It's a lot. You have to look at it yourself. You think it's nothing, but it's actually a lot. When somebody says thank you, hey, it was great, and you're going, well, was it? No, don't ridicule it. Hey, I got somebody that said, hey, they liked it. Even if they're holding back and not giving you the full information, that's not on you. That's on them. You've got what it's there, and you're doing something in here that takes a shit ton of time. You just said it yourself. And a shit ton of time. And you're not going, God, I wish somebody would pay attention to what shit I'm doing. They are. You're just not seeing it. Look at the small things. True. Look at the small things.
It's really interesting because that's how I got my one of my teaching jobs at a university, is that I was posting in just various social media, whatever, and this person had been watching what I was doing, and out of the blue was like, hey, we're going to be putting together a university class on storytelling in XR. Would you be interested in teaching it? And I was like, yes, I would. And I think I even brought up to them, I'm like, you never even liked any of my posts. Like, I had no idea it was coming up on your, your feed. And so you're absolutely right that you really don't know who's paying attention. And that's why I don't necessarily pay attention to the likes and, whatever. It's hard sometimes though, because I'm like, here's a really important thing that happened. And then it's like my sister going, love this, and that's the only comment I get. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. But yeah, you don't, it's true. You don't know who is watching. And so, it's, it, I have ups and downs, where I'm just like, I'm just doing this. I'm going to do my thing. I'm doing my thing. Because I love it. I love doing my thing. And I think, I'm definitely a part of a huge population where for so long you're kind of measured by, how much money you make and where you're going in the corporate job. And, and I had corporate jobs in the past and I left them because it just wasn't who I was. And so now I'm doing more of who I actually am. And, that old stuff is coming into my head like, oh, well, what, where's your corporate ladder? You're supposed to, which, where's the corporate ladder in VR land? It's like, there is none. Like we don't do that. We're not interested in that. And get away, basically. So it is really interesting coming into this space and kind of detaching from kind of old life and old life expectations into this new life where I am an artist and a teacher and I live by different rules. And so on the kind of down days, it is, that corporate HR going, excuse me, can I see your, your earnings for the last, month or something. And just having to remind myself like, that's not what I'm doing. I'm doing something totally different. I'm doing something that is incredibly weird, to be honest, like, and not in a bad way, like weird in a good way. Like, this is exploratory, it's experimental. This is everything I've ever wanted to do in theater. And so here it is. And yeah, I think it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, wow. I don't know how to live like this yet, if that makes sense, where I'm so used to that other, the corporate world and the office world, that those thoughts kind of still creep in and help judge my output. And it's those days that are kind of hard to get by because I have to remind myself that that's not how I am measuring myself anymore. That's not my reality anymore.
So I've got a bit of a question for you. How is it for you trying to explain what you do here to people outside of VR?
Oh my God.
Oh shit, you had to throw that at me. God damn it. Where's Wilson? He'll understand it.
Sorry.
It's
You just
my
blew my
gosh.
mind now, Lion. We're gonna have to get the Band-Aid and glue out. You know what happens every time we get that out.
It just fell apart.
It takes me an hour to find
it. No, so this is something that I'm continually learning how to do. At first, it was like an hour monologue, like, I'm excited and this is what I do and oh my gosh, you never guess what I'm doing and just on and on and on, and people are like, what's happening? Who are you? Like, so are you on stage or not? Like, what do you like? What? And it's shrunk now, and it's I do live performance in virtual reality, and then people say, how do you do that? And I say, well, you have a headset, or there are ways that you can access online. And they, even though I say you can access online, they say, I don't understand. So I say, I can give you a link to the stream that I'm on. If I'm performing an improv, we will stream. And still they're just like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I just had I have a mentor, and we were talking the other day, and she was really helpful because I was just like, what am I doing? and she does comedy writing, so it was very like she is aware of that feeling of like, and now what? Like, what am I doing? The show is over, and now what do I do? And uh, so she was very patient with me and kind of worked through the kinks with me on describing what I do. And one of the ways that I talk to a lot of people in my friends and family circle is through social media. And it was like, I was like, I don't understand. I'm posting these things and nobody is paying attention. Nobody's commenting. And they even say, what do you do? And how do you do it? And she was like, maybe if you post a picture of yourself with your headset in real life, and then like another picture of you in VR, they'll start connecting what you're doing. And lo and behold, I tried it and I got a bunch of action. Like people were like, oh, that's cool. That's fun. Oh, look. Oh, let me know when you're doing this again. And then today I even posted a picture of me performing on Twitch, and I have the Twitch app on my TV. And so I took a picture of my TV with me on it. And I was like, me performing in VR on TV. And people, oh, okay, I get it. So it's really interesting. So no matter how much I verbalize what I do, I think it's about showing people what they understand and then taking them from there. So having the headset, I hate those pictures. Me and my headset. I'm taking my picture with my headset. It's just silly. But for people to start understanding and encapsulating, like, oh, that's what she means by headset, and that's what she means that she's, wearing these trackers and whatever. And then also, oh, I can see it on TV, so that means I can get an app, and that's where I can watch it. There's all these like things that I kind of information gaps that for a long time I was taking for granted, because I live in this world so much that I use this jargon that people don't get, they don't understand. And as I'm working with other artists who are new to VR, I'm retraining myself on how to backtrack on and learn how to communicate with folks in a different language. And for so long, up until this point, I'm trying to keep up with people in VR. So I'm trying to, I was trying to learn vocabulary and different programs used and reference, different headsets used and reference. So I'm not feeling like I'm out of the loop. But the problem was when I got back to folks who didn't use it, I was using all this jargon that I was used to using in the VR space, and they just didn't have any connection. So now sculpting that message of how do you see the things I do is ever evolving, and yeah, I'm still working on it. So it's hard. I do the best I can.
I can definitely understand.
Describe it.
Sometimes whenever I'm describing to people I know out in the outside world what was going on, I feel like the guy in the History Channel of Aliens who's like this, hands up to a giant map with red string everywhere, and you're like, this is where it all starts. You're pointing at the thing. I feel like that all of the
like
time.
Charlie Day doing the thing. Where
I feel like that a lot of the time.
I forgot,
I definitely
what
understand.
was that character's name? I feel that that particular episode was just really funny, and I wish I need to have that like in my back pocket, because
whatever I think aliens
feel that.
conspiracy theory things hard to describe, that one History Channel thing pops in my mind. The meme of him just there, hair all frizzled, pointing at a map every single time just pops up in there.
So yeah, that's how I feel. Like, first, this is what happens. Yeah, it's wild. And then people are like, oh, how do you dance? And very different, Dirty Raptor, from what you were asking about, like, my kind of pedagogy, like how do I go about structuring the class and working with people. It's more like, how do you do that? Like, do you just get on a desktop and move yourself back and forth, like Second Life, And it's like, no, but I can see where you're coming from. Sometimes, if you want to show up in desktop mode, you can show up and play with your keys and do certain things, but that's not what I do. What I do is, and then a lot of people are also very familiar with mocap suits because they've seen it in movies and they've seen different, behind the scenes of different action movies or different video games where the actors in mocap. So, they'll be like, do you have a mocap suit? No, I don't have a mocap suit, but I have something similar that, it's just very basic. And then they start, so it's like a conversation. It's not just, I guess, I really wanted to bring it down to like an elevator pitch. I think that's definitely my my goal for the year is like to have an elevator pitch where anybody who asks me can just get the understanding. But you know what? It's really interesting because like you mentioned before that you weren't familiar with live performance in VR. You're not alone for people in VR not knowing this. So I spoke at VR TO in Toronto this past summer with some colleagues who also do live performance. And this is like a VR specific group. And some people were like, we didn't know you did this, or we've heard about it, but we didn't know that you could do some of this stuff. And so it was really interesting to find that some people who are very much on the fringe of VR didn't know much about what we did. And I was like, we have a lot of educating to do. These people aren't familiar with our work or don't know how to find us. Or, they've heard about us, but they didn't know like where else to go or who else is doing it. Like we need to talk to these people definitely, because they should know what we're doing. And so that was really interesting to kind of recognize like, wow, these folks need to know.
I'm remembering something someone told me once when they were describing, like I asked the same question to some other people just to hear how they respond to it. One of the things I've heard people describe it as, think of Ready Player One with loading screens and VR trackers. If you ever seen the movie Ready Player One.
Okay. I read half the book and I couldn't read more because the dialogue was so bad. But the world...
No, it's fine.
The world that was created was really interesting, but for me, I was bored with the actual like dialogue back and forth. I'm a dialogue person. I write dialogue, so
that's understandable.
I was like, what is this?
A lot of people are familiar with the movie Ready Player One. That's why they the person said to us Ready Player One with loading screens, is whenever you'll say Ready Player One, they think headsets, weird tracking haptic suit, treadmill, and they kind of roughly get virtual world, real world, sort of. At least that's how someone else describes it. It's not like the best way to describe like an entire interactive theater going on in virtual reality, and then there's raves over this way. Over there, there's an entire role play troupe who pretend to be Star Wars characters. Over there is a bunch of Warhammer guys who pretend to be orcs and other stuff like that. It's hard to describe all of it, but at least a way.
They know Ready Player One. Yeah. No, that's an excellent approach. I never thought about it because I don't really connect to that movie, and the book I didn't like, so I don't use it because I'm just like, this person is then going to want to talk to me about the movie if they know it, and I and so I was like, and then I wouldn't know what to say, and so but it is a good starting point, and that's the thing is learning how to talk to your potential audience and the people who aren't familiar with the space to get them at ease about what it is. Because there's a lot of bad press about what goes on in these spaces, and I think that's what people hang on to. They hang on to all the awful stuff that could happen, and sure, but I will ride the city bus, and a lot of awful stuff happens on the city bus. And I walk in the city, and a lot of awful things happen when I'm walking in the city. So it's a community of people, and sometimes weird stuff happens. Yeah. But there's a lot of great stuff, and it's just interesting how people are so interested in talking about the awful, terrible things that could happen. I'm just getting this picture of these, I'm just these posts of like virtual. I like to live in real reality. And then like the next thing they post is like me on a Saturday night, Netflix and pizza and my cat. I'm just like, wait, but you're just saying that the real reality is amazing, but yet you hang out, with Netflix and your cat on a Saturday. Cool. Okay. Sure. Good. And it's so funny because people will just, they'll dismiss it like it's awful and whatever, and I want real reality. And yeah, those people are just like not. Then I'm like, why aren't you at like this dance club downtown, or why aren't you at the museum opening at the Museum of Modern Art, or why aren't you at the baseball game? Why aren't you volunteering at the soup kitchen? Why aren't you, if reality is so great, why aren't you involved in it? I just don't get it.
The funny thing is the exact same people who say they like living in real reality, if you're to ask them how much they spend on time they spend on their phone and social media, will equate to more time than we spend in a headset. Like one of the things I've noticed when you go out the real world now is you see people playing in the phone party. Just a bunch of people on the bus, all face into their phone, not knowing whoever's around them, and they're just scrolling.
For sure.
That's all they do. Same person who told you that.
Like, that's your real, that's your real reality. Yeah, that same person it's just like, you will find that. And for me, it's so bizarre. It doesn't make any sense to me. And so, I think it's about dispelling the negativity around this space just in general, and just normalizing it, and just being like, wild stuff happens for sure. Like that's what you're going to get with people, just in general. But why don't you come to my improv show, or why don't you come to a dance class, or why don't you come to this poetry reading? Because I know poetry readings exist here. There's so many things that exist here. I took a Spanish class in VR. I didn't come back because it's too early in the morning on Sundays, but it was great. I had a good time, and it was awesome. Like, there's so many awesome things happening. So I think it's about uplifting those stories, and helping people to see that side, and then they get interested. But elevator pitch. That is going to be a goal of mine.
I wish you the best
say what
of
I do
luck.
in 3 sentences
Good
or
luck
less.
out there.
Thank you.
When you find an answer, let me know, because I would like to know too. Because I feel like the insane conspiracy theorist trying to explain it. I would love to know.
I know. Exactly. Let me get out my board. The red lines. I ran out of ribbon. I just need to. On this Post-it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so very much for coming and talking with us. Where can people find you if they wish to find you?
Oh gosh. Where they can find me? I'm on X. It's awful. I don't want to be on X, but I'm at Mycana_VR. And that is my kind of VR place. I'm trying to move over to Blue Sky, but it's challenge. And trying to move over to Threads too, but that's my main space without using my full name. I'm not opposed to using my full name, but I'll just let folks find me there for now, and then move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll put everything in the description too.
And Skits and Bits. You can find me at Skits and Bits. You can find me at VR Dance Academy. And my arm is just going all over the place. Yeah, and the various things I do. But I'd love to talk to other folks who are interested in writing for live performance in VR, and also anybody who likes comedy. Like the comedy.
Okay. And everything she's mentioned, we'll have links down below. Also, go down Hoobly What's a Thingy-ma-bob and check it out. Hey, Raptor, why don't you close us out?
All right, folks. No matter what you do, don't matter if it's snowing out, hot weather out, you never know. If you get into a groove and you want to dance like hell, look her up. She might teach you how to dance in the rain. And if not, the cop just go by and go, sorry, officer, I forgot where I parked my car. Take care, folks. We'll talk to you later. See you later.